Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron. It is the evening after the night before. It is the game review. Everton 1, Newcastle United 4. And sometimes they say, how do you feel the morning after, or how do you feel the next day, when something bad has happened in life, whether it be, I don't know, a breakup or a death in the family or anything really, a loss of a game of football from your favourite footballing side. There's an old saying that says, go to bed, see how you feel in the morning, clear your head, and see if you feel any better, see if you can think any more rationally about it once you've had a good night's sleep, the emotions are out your system, and you can actually sit back and think about what has happened and how to deal with what has happened. And often, people wake up the very next morning, and because they've had a nice sleep, and because their emotions aren't at a height, and because they are a little bit calmer, they can look at a situation and maybe think a little bit more rationally about it, and maybe try and find positives in the situation, or areas that to work on in the situation. That isn't the case for me. I woke up this morning in pretty much the same mood as the one that I went to sleep in. The first thing I thought about when I woke up was Everton. I've not stopped thinking about Everton all day, and I probably will be the last thing that I think about before I go to bed will be Everton, and it was instant. I opened my eyes, and instantly the first thought that popped into my mind was about how embarrassing that defeat was last night. How important that game of football was, and just how badly it went for those players and for Sean Dyche. And ultimately, I've said before and I'll say it again, I very much felt nothing after last night's game, in regards to, there was no anger, there was no frustration, there was no, there was no sort of anxiousness, there was no upset, there was nothing. I just didn't feel anything. I just felt a numbness to it. I felt a resignation to what is the inevitable. And I used the analysis on yesterday's instant match reaction. I think about, it's almost like taking your dying dog to the vet to be put down, and full well that the dog is dying and there's no way back. Full well that you're in the vets, and it's, unfortunately it's going to be put down, but you're sort of in that weird sort of stage of being in the waiting room, or filling in the papers, or waiting to be called in, waiting for your appointment to be called, waiting, to get to that moment where it all comes to an end. And that's a little bit how I feel about Everton at the moment. I just feel like every game at the moment, every defeat, every performance is just us waiting for the inevitable to happen. And, look, I understand that people want to be optimistic. I understand that people want to be, a little bit more positive about the situation, and I understand that there'll be people out there that don't want to think like that, and we'll look at it and think, well, we've got still 5 games to go, and we've got important games in there, and everything could change with a couple of wins. Don't get me wrong, if Everton were to pick up a couple of wins, then we might be sitting here having a very different conversation. But given the games we've got left, and given the fact that Everton don't look like they are capable of winning a game of football, never mind like they are likely to win a game of football. There's a difference between a team looking unlikely to win a game of football and a team not looking capable of winning a game. Last season, we didn't look likely to win games of football after that Burnley defeat, but you always knew we had Richarlison, you always knew that the home crowd was going to be on top, you always knew that the coach greetings were going to be there, and whilst it was unlikely, I think deep down we knew that we could win, hence why we all sort of went and greeted the coaches before the game, and went and greeted the players at Finch Farm, and hence why we all screamed and shouted and bawled. And although we did that yesterday, I think as the game went on yesterday, and certainly after that first half, and certainly when Newcastle United scored their first goal, I think there was an air of almost anxiousness around everybody within Goodison, but also an air of acceptance of maybe we don't believe as much as we did last season. Maybe we don't believe as much as we did towards the back end of that campaign. And I'm not quite sure I do believe Everton are capable of winning games of football, but that's because I don't think we are. And, okay, we've got to play Wolves away, we've got to play Leicester away, and the Leicester game on Monday night is an absolute humongous game of football. There's no other way to describe it, and I understand and I appreciate that. And if we win there, then all of a sudden the landscape looks, an awful lot different, because obviously Leicester are in and around the same situation as what we are as well. And then we go to Brighton, who have just been beaten by Nottingham Forest. Granted, it was obviously away from home, and Brighton have had a tough couple of weeks, obviously being knocked out of the semi-final by Manchester United. It's never easy playing 120 minutes of football and then being knocked out on penalties. They've had their win knocked a little bit. Could we maybe go there and get something? Again, I don't think this really depends on other teams. I don't think it really depends on how bad Leicester are on Monday night, or whether or not Brighton have still got the win knocked out of the sails next week. I think it depends on whether or not Everton are good enough to go away from home and win a game. And I'm not quite sure we are, because we don't seem good enough to come to Goodison Park and win a game, never mind go away from home. Something we've only done 3 times in, 36 months or something like that? 24 months. We've won 3 times away from home in 24 months. We've won once away from home this season. It's not unrealistic for me to sit here and say, I don't think we'll win another away game this season. And then you add that to the fact that our 2 remaining home games, one of them is Manchester City, who are still, whether or not people think they've won the Premier League now because of that game against Arsenal on Wednesday night, or whether or not people think that Arsenal have bottled it and it's in Manchester City's hands. Manchester City, at the time of recording, are still second in the Premier League. Yes, they've got 2 games in hand, and yes, Arsenal look really poor at the moment. Well, poor from their standard, but they're still second in the league. They're not 8 points clear at the top, Manchester City. So they won't be coming to Goodison, with any reason to take their foot off the gas by any means. And the other home game is on the final day of the season against Bournemouth, when it all could be done and dusted. And if it isn't all done and dusted, then again, we've got to win that one. So yesterday was massive for many reasons, and one of them being that it was almost an example for me of that the fans can do everything, but they can only do so much. And you could not have asked for more from the fans yesterday. The coach greeting before the game was absolutely fantastic. The support, the screaming, the shouting, the chanting, the blue smoke, and all of the other, stuff. You could not have asked more from the fans, and that atmosphere was carried into the stadium. The atmosphere in the first 45 minutes of the game was impeccable. But you know what was also quite evident in the first 45 minutes of the game, as well as how good the atmosphere was that Everton are lacking 2 things, and 2 things that ultimately I think will take them down. One of them is a lack of ideas, and that comes from the manager, and I personally don't believe the manager is good enough. I know some people won't like to hear that, and I know some people want to defend Sean Dyche to the hill, and I don't by any sense of the imagination believe that Sean Dyche is the biggest issue with this football club, and I don't believe by any sense of the imagination that there was anybody out there that could have come in and done a better job. I don't even blame Sean Dyche for what is going on, but I just don't think he's good enough for Everton Football Club. I really don't. And another thing is a lack of quality, which of course comes from the playing staff. And it doesn't matter how good the fans are, it doesn't matter how loud the atmosphere is, it doesn't matter how they greet the coach, it doesn't matter how much we give to this football club. If those players simply are not good enough, and the manager simply isn't making the right decisions and isn't bringing any ideas, then we are going to be relegated. It doesn't matter how much we sing, scream, shout and chant. If the manager persists playing out of form centre-back at right-back, we're going to continue losing games of football. If the manager persists on playing, quite frankly, a bang average centre-back in there instead of our best centre-back who currently sits fit on the bench, then we're going to lose games of football. We're not going to score goals, not because the fans don't turn up and scream and shout, but because our forward options, Dwight McNeil, Alex Iwobi, Neil Maupay, Damari Gray, just aren't good enough. And I looked at that first half yesterday, and by the way, this is probably going to be a little bit of a different game review to all of the other game reviews. Usually with a game review, we sit down, we talk about the first half in a big chunk, we talk about the second half, we talk about all of the goals. If I'm being honest with you, I'll talk about the first half and the goal, the first Callum Wilson goal, of course, but I'm not going to sit here and detail the second, third and fourth Newcastle goal, because at that point, it was game over for Everton. And I just don't think it provides anything by sitting in detail on what went wrong. Defensively, it was an absolute shambles, every one of them. But, we did have that effort. We did have that fight. We did have that determination. I said it yesterday about players like Abdoulaye Doucouré, who did run round yesterday in that first half, did put himself about, did battle. But he's not a very good footballer. He's not a very good footballer. And I think we've clouded ourselves over recent times because of maybe he's got an assist here and there, or he's got a goal here and there, of falling into this false dawn that a couple of these players are actually really good footballers. They're not. They're not. I seen somebody put a picture up on Twitter earlier today, and it was I think it was the chance that Iwobi had where the Newcastle player tried to rag him back and he barged them off, and then he passed into Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Dom shot at the goalkeeper, and there was a still frame of Iwobi with the ball, and basically Abdoulaye Doucouré about 40 yards to his left with a load of space in front of him, and the tweet said something along the lines of, "I can't forgive Iwobi for not passing to Abdoulaye Doucouré," and I looked at it and I thought, yes, whilst on paper you look at that and you think, why has he not passed to Abdoulaye Doucouré there in that situation? Does anybody realistically think Alex Iwobi would have been able to play a 40-yard pass into Abdoulaye Doucouré yesterday on the break under the pressure? No, he wouldn't have. And even if he'd have made that pass, do we really think Abdoulaye Doucouré would have been trusted to control that ball on the edge of the box, get into a good area and get a shot off? We're talking about the same Abdoulaye Doucouré who had a one-on-one a couple of weeks ago and fell over his own feet. So it's all well and good sitting here saying, why didn't he play that pass? Why didn't he make that pass? This, that, and the other. These players aren't good enough to make those types of passes, and they clearly know that they're not good enough because they don't attempt them. So they know they're not capable, and when they do attempt them, they don't come off. And I stick with what I said yesterday. We have a team full of players who either are not good enough but will give it a bit of effort and work hard. Your Dwight McNeils, your Vitaly Mikhailenkos, for example. And a group of players that are not good enough and seemingly don't have the right attitude. And look, I don't really blame Ben Godfrey for his performance yesterday. I don't blame Ben Godfrey. Ben Godfrey was atrocious yesterday. But do you know if Sean Dyche phoned me yesterday and said, Cam, I need you to come and play right back. And I started at right back and I had a horrendous game of football. I don't think many people would be looking, screaming and shouting at me. I think they'd be going, well, he's not a footballer. He's obviously not very good. So why is the manager picking him? And that's sort of how I see this. Obviously, it's different with Ben Godfrey because he is a footballer and, he earns a large amount of money and he absolutely deserves criticism. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve criticism. What I'm saying is I actually feel a little bit sorry for Ben Godfrey because he is woeful. He is a woeful defender, and he is a woeful right back. He always has been a poor right back. Even when he's played well for Everton in full back areas, it's been at left back or at centre back when he's had a good bit of form. He's never ever had a good run of form at right back. So why the manager persists on playing him there, or persists on playing Mason Holgate there, who we hadn't seen for about 3 years before last week, instead of an out right back? And I'm not by any sense of the imagination sitting here saying that had Nathan Patterson had played yesterday, Everton would have won that game, because I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. However, at least he would have been a natural right back. At least positionally he would have known where to go. At least positionally he would have known where he needed to be. Ben Godfrey was all over the place yesterday. He was absolutely all over the place. And because he was all over the place, he quite quickly lost his confidence. And, I mean, if you watch Newcastle's fourth goal again, the one where Isaac just skips past about 4 players, Ben Godfrey just watches him walk past them. Just watches him walk past them. And for me, that's an acceptance of Ben effectively saying, I don't want to be anywhere near this pitch. I just want to go home. And that's down to the manager. That is an example of genuine mismanagement. Genuine mismanagement by Sean Dyche, because Sean Dyche shouldn't have kept him on the pitch. He shouldn't have started him in the first place, but he certainly shouldn't have kept him on the pitch for the entirety of the game. And every time I talk about this, I get people saying, I'm not I'm not having to go with Evertonians, by the way, because I actually agree with what people are saying. But every time I get, I speak about this type of situation or the Michael Keane situation, I get people saying, well, the manager doesn't like Nathan Patterson. Well, the manager doesn't like Yerry Mina. Well, the manager doesn't like this player. Well, the manager doesn't like player. I don't give a fuck who the manager likes. Because in order for me to sit here and think, well, okay, the manager doesn't like them, so that's fair enough. There has to be an element of trust between me and the manager. There has to be an element of trust between the manager and the fan base for him to make those types of decisions and for people to go, do you know what? We've just got to believe in, we've just got to trust that process and go with it. I don't trust Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche has done nothing to earn my trust. Nothing to earn my trust. I don't care what he did at Burnley. I don't care what he did at previous clubs. He's done nothing at Everton to earn my trust for me to be able to say the decision to start Ben Godfrey at right back over Nathan Patterson is the right one, because it absolutely isn't the right one. It absolutely isn't. And quite frankly, I don't care who Sean Dyche likes. I don't care who he gets along with. I don't care who's his mates or who've been his mates at previous clubs. And do you know what? We should have seen this coming. We should have seen this coming, because if you remember rightly, in Sean Dyche's first interview as the Everton manager, when he sat down in Finch Farm, he was asked a specific question about James Tarkowski and Dwight McNeil, and he was asked about them two as being players that he's managed recently and whether or not he's looking forward to managing them again and working with them again. And before he even opened his mouth, before the interviewer had even finished asking the question, Sean Dyche jumped to and Keno. And every single time Dyche was asked a question about players he's played with before or players he knows well, Michael Keane was always the first out of his mouth. Michael Keane was always the one that he jumped to. So he's clearly got a personal relationship there with Michael Keane, which is fine. I don't mind if you've got a personal relationship with Michael Keane. It doesn't bother me. But the facts are that the only reason Michael Keane is starting at the moment for Everton is because of his personal relationship with Sean Dyche. And people can give me the argument that Yerry Mina's leaving in the summer and Everton don't want to injure him or don't want to risk him in case he gets injured and then no one buys him. He's out of contract, so it doesn't matter whether he gets injured. Yerry Mina's going in the summer anyway. He's not being given a new contract, is he? So it doesn't matter whether he comes on and gets a career-ending injury. He's out of contract. We don't need to sell him. He's gone. He leaves. We don't get no money for him anyway. We're not going to get money for him anyway either way. But you've also got Connor Cody there. And look, I appreciate Connor Cody was taken out of the team, and rightly so, because his performances at that time were not good enough. And I agree with that. Connor Cody's performances at the time that he was taken out of the team were not good enough, and he fully deserved to be taken out of the team. But he's been sat on the bench now for 3 months, Connor Cody, without any appearance for Everton. And you're telling me that in those 3 months, Michael Keane has performed exceptionally? No, he hasn't. He's made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. What was the first thing Sean Dyche said when asked about Yerry Mina yesterday in his press conference after this game? He said Michael Keane had a good game until the second goal went in. Did he really? Or did we just not? Did Newcastle just not really particularly getting at us? Newcastle didn't get at us in the first half. They broke once, they scored. That was it. When they actually put their foot on the gas a little bit and started to get at us, Michael Keane completely fell to bits. Like he does near enough every week. Again, the Isaac goal, Isaac didn't score, but I can't even remember who scored, but the goal where Isaac takes everybody on, Michael Keane's ripped into 16 pieces by Isaac. He is not good enough. He never has been good enough. Hence why he's been here through 4 or 5 different managers, and every one of them has deemed him not good enough. I genuinely do not see a reason as to why Michael Keane is in this team other than him having a relationship with Sean Dyche. I really, really don't. And that is a fault of the manager, and that's why the manager deserves to be criticised. Ben Godfrey at right back, horrendous decision. Absolutely horrendous decision. I don't care how bad Nathan Patterson may be. He at the very least positionally knows where he is, knows where he needs to be, knows where he needs to stand, knows where to be off the ball. He knows that much because he's grown up as a right back. He's gone through the academies, Rangers Academy, wherever it may be, as a right back. So he knows where to be. He knows what to do, off the ball. Ben Godfrey isn't a right back, so Ben Godfrey hasn't got a clue about that. And that's being shown every time Ben Godfrey has played at right back, and was shown massively yesterday. Yeah. It was horrendous yesterday. It was horrendous, and look, you know, ultimately, we have got to get behind the team, and we will get behind the team because we're fans, and you know, as much as I don't want to watch another Everton game this season, and as much as I turned around yesterday on the phone to my girlfriend and said I won't be watching on Monday night, I'm not watching anymore, I can't be bothered. I'll be watching on Monday night, of course I'll be watching on Monday night. I'll be sitting there with everybody else watching, and I'll be watching next weekend when we play Brighton, and I'll be watching when we play Wolves, and I'll be there when we play Manchester City at Goodison, and when we play Bournemouth, of course I will be, because I'm an Evertonian, and that's what we do regardless of the situation that we're in. But it's really, 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 really difficult to get behind this team and to get behind these players when we're watching what we are watching. And when the manager is making decisions that, quite frankly, are baffling. And I understand and I appreciate that, that he's being given a wounded team that aren't very good and is filled with players that aren't very good. I understand that. I understand that he's being given a pretty impossible job to do. I get all of that, and I don't, by any sense of the imagination, put all of the blame on Sean Dyche. In fact, I think in this whole situation, the situation Everton are in, Sean Dyche is probably the least culpable. But he is still culpable because he's still making decisions every week that I can't wrap my head around, and decisions that make no sense. And that means he takes blame. And I'll be honest, I don't think he's good enough to be the Everton manager. I don't. I just don't. And people will not like that. People will disagree with that. And that's not me saying sack him, because the realistic situation is we've got 5 games to go. Sacking him now would mean nothing. We'd have a temporary manager in, it would do nothing, and we'd have to pay out another 2-3 million quid, whatever it is, and we can't really afford to do that in the situation that we're in. But I just don't think he's good enough, and I don't think 98% of this squad are good enough. And I think the ones that are good enough, if we do go down, won't be here, and the ones that aren't good enough we'll be stuck with. Players like Damari Gray, players like Neil Maupay, players like Alex Iwobi, players like Ben Godfrey will still be here if we go down, because who's going to buy them? I just... Yeah. I don't know. I honestly... It's difficult to find any words to describe this. I've done... we done 2 live streams last night, which I think ended up being over an hour together when you added the time together. So I talked for this game for an hour yesterday, and it's been less than 24 hours, and I'm still stuck on what to say about it. It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. Chicken Coop has donated €5 to the stream. Says, would Everton be in this position if they had sacked Lampard after the Bournemouth defeat and brought in Dyche? Probably not. Because we'd have had a full transfer window with Dyche. He'd have had obviously a full break during the World Cup to work with the players and to try and get something happen. It wouldn't have been as rushed, and there was winnable games in there, games against fellow relegation sides, Southampton, etc. that we would have probably, Wolves on Boxing Day, that we would have probably won with Sean Dyche in the dugout as opposed to Frank Lampard. But again, that's another criticism of the board, isn't it? And the people in charge, is they didn't make the decision quick enough. They dilly-dallied on it. They sat on their hands, and they are now paying the price for that. And as much as it kills me to say, and it does kill me to say it, I'll be brutally honest with you all. This board and this owner and the CEO and the chairman, they're getting everything that they deserve. Everything that they deserve. We aren't getting what we deserve as fans. We don't deserve any of this. This club don't deserve us. We go out and support this football club as if they are, challenging for titles, challenging for trophies, challenging for league titles, challenging in the Champions League. We go out and support this team better than most supporters in the land. We don't deserve this. But does Bill Kenwright deserve this? Absolutely, he deserves this on his head. Does Denise Barrett-Baxendale deserve this on her head? Absolutely. Does Farhad Moshiri deserve this on his head? Absolutely. Because do you know what? I've just read an article about 25 minutes ago from Matt Lord of The Telegraph, so quite a reliable journalist, quite a reliable source. And the article read that, the EFC Fan Advisory Board have written a statement to Farhad Moshiri asking him to make changes at the football club. Yeah, I'm not going to read it out on here because it's for a different video. But I've just read an article from The Telegraph which states that Telegraph Sport understands that Everton started to plan for the doomsday scenario of going down last summer, having narrowly avoided the drop, and after including relegation clauses in the contracts of their new signings, however many players wouldn't face pay cuts. So some people will look at this and think, well, that's what you're asking for, isn't it, Cam? You know, Everton preparing, Everton having a plan, Everton showing a little bit of forward thinking. But read that article. Actually consume that information. Everton started preparing for a doomsday scenario last summer. To put that into a normal, understandable sentence, last summer, the Everton board sat down and instead of thinking, shit, we got lucky there, we can't let that happen again, we need to make relevant changes to avoid that happening again, i.e. I'll step down because I'm not good enough, or the owner coming in and going, we need to make changes, you and you, you're out of your job because you're not good enough. Instead of doing that, they just carried on with what they were doing and made a plan in case it happens again, knowing full well, by the way, that it would happen again, because they knew full well that nothing was going to change. They knew that they weren't going to change. They knew that the way they ran the football club wasn't going to change. They knew that the manager wasn't going to change, the previous manager I'm talking about. So they knew exactly what position we'd be in. So, again, this club have bit themselves in the arse, because we've listened to statements from the chairman and the owner for months talk about how, again, this season is unprecedented and we didn't expect it and it's against what we believe would happen and we didn't think it when we believed in Frank, etc, etc, etc. And now we're reading that they'd planned for this, because the club think, oh, if we release information saying we planned for the doomsday scenario, that'll make us look good, because that'll make us look like we've got a plan, that'll make us look like we're actually doing our job, when in reality, all it makes it look like is, A, you're lying, because you've told us for the last 4 or 5 months that, you know, this is unprecedented times and we didn't think we'd be in this situation and we've all got to stick together. And B, you're telling us that instead of looking at it last season and thinking, how do we avoid this happening again? Instead, you just made a plan knowing it would happen again, or formulated some form of nonsense with players' contracts knowing it would happen again. Once again, Bill Kenwright, Denise Barrett-Baxendale, Farhad Moshiri all put themselves before this football club. They all put their own interests, they all put their own bank accounts, and they all put their own jobs before Everton Football Club. Because they knew we were going to be in this situation. So instead of walking away to avoid that, what they did is they tried to make a plan for it so they could secure their jobs. And they are the reason we are in this position today. Not Sean Dyche, and not even the players. The players are, because it's the players who put the performances in. But the reason we have the players that we have is because of gross mismanagement from the top of the football club, and because of dreadful recruitment over the years from the top of the football club. That's the reason we've got this current squad. We sold good players to bring in average players, and we sold average players to bring in poor players. And now we have a squad of incredibly poor players who, in my opinion, will be relegated this season. It's as simple as that. And it's all because the people at the top of the football club put themselves before the football club. So Mr. Bill Kenwright, the biggest Evertonian in the world, this, that and the other, who in one statement, starts it off by saying, I'm not involved in the football club, I don't run the football club. And 2 paragraphs later in the same statement says, me and Farhad are on this hourly. Hang on, I thought you didn't run the football club, mate. If you don't run the football club and you have no involvement like you said you didn't, then why are you and the owner working hourly? Make your mind up, you lying, hypocritical clown. And that's why we are where we are, and that's why performances like yesterday and a numbness, and an absolute numbness, because I expect it. I expect Everton to perform like that. I expect managers to make bad decisions. I expect players to not be good enough, because that's what we are as a football club. That's what we are. Dyche, in the last 4 weeks, has made enough mistakes that if he was sacked, I wouldn't particularly be bothered. And I'm not saying I want him to be sacked, and I'm not saying he will be sacked, and I'm not saying he should be sacked, but what I'm saying is I think he's shown recently that he's just not really good enough for what we need. He's not the biggest problem, but he is a problem. Certainly whilst he's making baffling decisions like starting Michael Keane at centre-back and Ben Godfrey at right-back. The players, quite frankly, are not good enough. And they showed that in that first half. I'm not worried about the second half yesterday. I'm not arsed. I'm not arsed that Callum Wilson scored the worldie. I'm not arsed that Isaac took the piss out of our defence. I'm not arsed that... I don't even know who scored Newcastle's second goal, Joe Linton. I'm not arsed. Doesn't worry me. Some people are sitting there and say, does it worry you that the defence were horrific yesterday in that second half? No, not really. Because we'll have other games where the defence are quite solid and they don't make those mistakes. So, conceding 3 goals to a Newcastle team that are fighting for the Champions League, that are in impeccable form at the moment, and that, going forward, have scored 10 goals in 2 games, by the way, which is almost half of Everton's tally for the season in their last 2 games. Callum Wilson doubled Dominic Calvert-Lewin's goal tally and Neil Maupay's goal tally in 1 game yesterday. In 45 minutes, Callum Wilson scored twice the amount that Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Neil Maupay have scored this season. So no, it doesn't worry me that Newcastle did that, because Newcastle could do that to anybody. They put 6 past Spurs the other day. What worries me is the first half. And some people look at that first half and go, how can you be worried about that first half, Cam? We were good, we worked hard, we battled, they didn't really have anything. We had a couple of opportunities, other than the goal, we were decent, we defended well. Do you know what worries me about that first half? Is all of that I've just mentioned. That we had a lot of the ball, the crowd was up, the crowd was lifted, we battled, we worked hard, and yet we still went in 1-0 down. And we didn't go in 1-0 down because we were unlucky. We didn't go in 1-0 down because a bad refereeing decision. Okay, you could say we were unlucky with the VAR decision, that's fine. And I understand there will always be the argument from the positive, fans amongst us, and fair play. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But there will always be the argument of, well, had we have gone in at half-time 1-1, would it have been a different outcome? Maybe it would have. Maybe the crowd would have lifted again, and maybe Newcastle. I don't know. But the reality is that we created nothing in that first half, and we didn't look like we had any idea. And in terms of the effort and the fight and the determination, I don't think you get much more than what we saw in that first 45 minutes. And we created nothing. Dom had a couple of half chances on the turn that nothing come of, and he obviously scored the goal, which was, okay, a toenail offside, whatever. But my issue isn't the defence conceding 3 stupid goals in the second half. Whether we lost that game 1-0 or whether we lost that game, 4-5-1, whatever it may be, irregardless, really, we're still lost. My worry is that this team doesn't score goals. This team can't score goals. You look and you think, we have got 5 games to go in the Premier League. Now, if you, even to draw those games, you would expect Everton to have to score at least 1 goal every game to draw. Given we're away from home against everybody except Manchester City, and we'll have to score against Manchester City because there's not a chance they won't score at Goodison. That's 5 more goals. Who scored in the 5 goals for Everton? Answer me that. Lemmy's donated £2 to this team. Thank you very much, Lemmy. Really appreciate it. If you are watching the stream and you're enjoying, there's 180 people watching. I really appreciate it. If you could hit that like button, it would mean a massive amount to me. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would mean a huge amount to me as well. Yeah, I just don't feel like there's a way back. I don't. And listen, again, I could be sitting here on Monday evening ranting and raving and screaming and shouting and with a bottle of beer in my hand because we've just gone and beaten Leicester away from home and the whole landscape of this could look so much different. But how likely is that to happen? I'm not quite sure. Our next home game is against a team that very well could go on and win the treble. The one after that is on the final day of the season when I fear things could be nasty. And for everybody saying, well, we'll beat Leicester, or we can beat Brighton, or we can beat Wolves. I said before, and I'll say it again, until this Everton team proves to me that it can go away from home. We've won 1 away game this season. I was there at Southampton. St Mary's, we scored 2 goals in the space of 3 minutes, completely against the run of play. Southampton almost didn't know what was going on, and we managed to defend for the rest of the game and win that game. We have not gone away from home since Brighton in August last season. Nearly 2 years it's been since Everton have gone away from home and won a game by going out and being the better side. Going out and just blowing a team away. 2 years nearly. Now, that's not me saying we can't grind out a win, but how likely are we to grind out a win against a Leicester team that are also facing relegation and need to win? How likely are we to grind out a win against the Wolves team that, also maybe looking at it thinking, hang on, we're not necessarily 100% safe yet, we need to win? How likely is that? A Brighton team that, will be looking at Everton thinking this is a great opportunity to get a little bit of form back. How likely is this to happen? Unlikely is the answer. Massively unlikely. Because we don't win games of football away from home. And people might say we can't win with that loser mentality, Gamba says, but listen, my mentality is formed from the players' mentality. I went into Fulham thinking, yeah, we'll beat these today. These have got nothing to play for. They've lost 4 games on the bounce. We'll absolutely blather these today. There's no way we don't win. And the players went in with a loser's mentality. What have I been shown? What have I been given for me to sit here and believe we'll go and win another game this season? Never mind an away game. As I said, first half, we'll run through the goals. First half for me, I did think we were the better team. I did think we were on top. I did think the crowd was good. I think the crowd was up for it. I think the players were reacting to that. I thought Garner had a good first half. I thought the centre defence had nothing to do. So by proxy looked okay because they had nothing to do. We had a couple of half opportunities. Tom had a couple of half opportunities where he on the turn, he had one where he nearly Ronaldo chopped it inside, but he lost his footing. Dwight McNeil had 2 shots from about 45 yards, again showing a lack of confidence and a level of panic when getting around those areas. Lemmy's has donated another £2 to the stream. Thank you very much, my mate. Really appreciate it. Dom had a couple of those chances, and then Newcastle get one opportunity on the break. They go up the other end. They take a shot. Jordan Pickford spills it right into the path of Callum Wilson. And I haven't watched the game. I was at the other end of the stadium and I haven't watched the game back, and I won't be watching the game back, but whoever is supposed to be marking Callum Wilson is miles away from it, and Callum Wilson taps in, and you almost felt the energy of the entire stadium drain the minute that goal went in, because it was almost like an acceptance of, hang on, we've just sung and screamed and shouted our heart out for the best part of 35 minutes. We've been the team on top. We've created nothing. And all of a sudden, Newcastle have had one chance and they've scored. How? And I think once that set in, the panic started to set in, the anxiety started to set in, and it's very, very, very easy to sit there and say to a group of fans or to say to Evertonians, well, when we go 1-0 down, get up and support the team. When we go 1-0 down, get up and get behind them. It's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as that. I've been to every game at Goodison this season. I've been to every game at Goodison for about 15 years. I've had my season ticket since I was 10 years old. I've been to every game at Goodison. I've been to most games away from home in the last 2-3 seasons. Whatever it is, 2 seasons after we come back from COVID. I was there last night, and the minute it went 1-0, I didn't think, right, I'm getting up and I'm screaming and shouting and I'm getting behind them. I thought, oh my God, we are fucked. We are gone. This is it. This is it. Yeah. It's really, really hard. Really, really difficult. If you're enjoying, by the way, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. It's really, really difficult to say to any fan when you go 1-0 down in those circumstances, just forget about it and get up and support the team and act as if it's 0-0 again. It's not that easy. And you felt that. You felt that within Goodison Park yesterday. You felt that the minute we went 1-0 down, everybody just sort of went. It was like a collective. It's almost like you hear the collective from everybody. Because it was like, shit. And yeah, we picked ourselves back up and we fought back. And again, the crowd naturally lifted because there was a little bit of effort after the goal. Again, don't get me wrong, I don't think there was enough from the players. I really don't think there was enough. But there was a little bit of effort after the goal. We ended the half relatively strongly. Dom gets his chance. He takes it. It's a really good finish. And it's a knee offside. And I think when most people watch that goal back at half-time or seen the replay in the concourse or thought about it, again, it's very easy to think, well, why didn't everybody just go, no, we can get behind this, we're having a go at these. We're getting at them, we've just scored, it was unlucky, let's go again in the second half. But it's hard to do that when the other side of it is you looking at that and thinking, hell, not even looks on our side here, we've had VAR disallow a goal that, if it was the other way round and it was Newcastle scoring it because they're the flavour of the month, because they've got all the money that they've been given it, it's very difficult. And then we come out in the second half, and quite frankly, players like Onana, Godfrey, just embarrassed themselves. Absolutely embarrassed themselves. As I said, we've got a lot of players in this squad who just aren't good enough. Decore runs around and works hard, but he's an absolutely awful footballer. Mikalenko runs around and works hard, but he's an absolutely awful footballer. And yeah, we didn't really look much better in that second half, did we? We had to go a little bit, got at them a little bit. As I said, Iwobi had that chance where he barged the player off the floor and maybe he should have passed it to Decore, but even if he would have, nothing would have come to it because Decore's not good enough in those situations to deal with that. He passed it to Dom. Dom had the shot off. It was an easy save, and then the minute they got the second goal, it was completely game over. You just knew it was you knew that it was a humongous task to expect Everton to score 2 goals, because it was never a get one and get back in the game and get a point. A point was never good enough yesterday. So when we went 1-0 down, you knew it was a monumental task to expect us to go out and get 2 goals to win the game. To expect us to go out and get 3 goals because we're 2-0 down was just going to be impossible, and it was impossible, and that of course showed. Yeah, it went 2-0. Shortly after, it went 3-0, and okay, we scored. Dwight McNeil, the third goal, by the way, Newcastle's third goal, which killed us off. The second goal is embarrassing defending. The third goal is embarrassing midfield work. Bruno Gomes was allowed to just walk through the midfield. Yeah, and okay, Callum Wilson's shot is an absolute peeler, but again, a 3-0, you really started to feel the ground getting, frustrated, people leaving. And you know what I thought yesterday as well? And it almost backs up the point I'm trying to make, is that I remember last season losing to Watford I remember losing to Wolves. I remember losing to various teams last season. And when we'd go a goal down, or especially that Watford game when, I think that ended 4-1 or something. And, every goal we conceded would be met with jeers and boos and screams and shouts. And, everybody would be frustrated and angry and, really quite vocally upset with the performance and the players. Whereas yesterday, the third one went in, and almost everyone around me, just, not everyone of course, but a lot of people around me sort of just got up, and it was like, right, that's it. And it was almost like, see you later, see you after, to the people around them, and they just left. And last season in this situation, I was witnessing them same people screaming and shouting and angry and frustrated. And I looked at them same faces yesterday, and it was just nothing. There was nothing there. It was just an expression of, see you next week. Because we've become accustomed to this now. We're used to this. This is what we expect. As I said, the third goes in, and it's completely game over. We score one, which is, I still haven't seen it back, and I won't see it back because I'm not arsed. I think he scores directly from the corner. Probably a little bit of miscommunication between the goalkeeper and the defence, and then literally instantly. I mean, I looked at Joe Thomas's Twitter before, and Joe Thomas, who's a reporter for The Journalist, tweeted out that it was 3-1, and in the same minute that he tweeted that out, he tweeted out that it was 4-1. We conceded within 60 seconds of scoring. And yes, it's a wonderful bit of play by Isaac, and for all of the Newcastle fans that inevitably are watching or will watch this video, unbelievable assist, great, yeah, really good player. And I'm not even being sarcastic there. I genuinely do think Isaac is a top player, a top player, and one that Newcastle will definitely benefit from having in the near future. However, it's not as good as what it's being made out to be, and I'll tell you why. Not because of what Isaac does. What Isaac does is quite frankly unbelievable, but because 4 Everton players allow him to just walk past them. That assist would still look good with nobody on the pitch. Don't get me wrong. But there may as well have been nobody on the pitch. Because Michael Keane watches him walk past, Garner walks behind him, and Ben Godfrey just stops and goes, go ahead, go. And that, again, it was all like, you know what it felt like yesterday? It felt like those times when you've had a bevy and you just don't remember anything. It felt yesterday like I got absolutely bladdered at half time, and then at full time it was just like, what's happened there? I don't remember any of that. Who scored? How did they score? What did they score? Obviously, Newcastle went on and scored a 5th. That was, again, pulled offside. But that's how it felt. And isn't it mad that Everton conceded 4 goals, one of them being offside? So 3 goals in a second half of football to lose a game 4-1, and that still wasn't the most concerning half of football in that game. Because that isn't the most concerning. The defence shipping goals like that isn't that concerning, because we won't do that every week. What's more concerning is the first half, because the first half showed that going forward creatively we have nothing. No ideas, no quality, no nothing. And at the moment we've got a group full of players who, as I said, either don't seem interested or don't seem good enough. Onana, and I don't mean, people will say don't pick players out, but I will pick players out. What was Onana doing yesterday? Didn't seem like he was arsed. Godfrey, not good enough, but again, elements of his game didn't seem like he was arsed. Again, he's not good enough, but that 4th goal, shocking, absolutely shocking. Decisions by the manager. Not good enough. And we are now left with what I think is an impossible task. And I hope to God I am proven wrong. But I do fear that I won't be proven wrong. Because we've now got to go away from home and win games of football. And Everton don't go away from home and win games of football. So, yeah. And this is all the fault of those at the top of the football club. It's as simple as that. Bill Kenwright, Denise Barrett Baxendale, Farhad Mashiri, get out of our club now. You haven't got a clue what you are doing. You are clowns. And you are only in it for your own interests. And the article we read before proves that. You are the reason we are in our second relegation battle on the bounce. Because last season, instead of looking at it and thinking, we need to make changes here so this doesn't happen again, instead you plan for it to happen again because you put yourself in front of the football club. Where do we go from here? Well, we go to Leicester on Monday night, which we will be doing a game preview to over the next couple of days, so look out for that one. And I suppose we'll see what that game has installed as well. But yeah, this one was soul destroying for many different reasons. Not only because we lost the game and in the manner we lost the game, but yeah, that performance yesterday for me is that of a team that deserves to be relegated. That of a club that deserves to be relegated. We don't deserve it, but unfortunately for us, the players, the management, the ownership, they all deserve it. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed this one, please hit the like button. It does only take a second. Big thanks you to everybody for watching live. Really appreciate it. If you're new, which I assume a lot of you will be new, then please subscribe. It only takes a second and it would mean a massive amount to me. We'll be back with the game preview to that Leicester game over the next couple of days, so look out for that one. And yeah, big thanks for watching. See you later.